Have you guys heard from? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I won't say anything this week. We'll wait.
Okay.
Hi, it's Charlie Zeiss with Stargate Pyramids, and this is Pyramid Quest for Monday, April 27th, 2020. Joining me today are Lisa Richards and Lori Sasson. Today we're continuing our discussion and into vortex mathematics and the Solfeggio frequencies. Today we're focusing specifically on the Solfeggio Matrix of GW Hardin. Now, if you're like me, a lot of you had never heard of GW until I hadn't until about 3 or 4 weeks ago when I started doing research on the Solfeggio frequencies. But since finding his website, we have had a chance to I've had a chance to be on 2 long discussions with GW. Lori was on with me as well last week. And not only is he a fascinating individual, but his knowledge, he is clearly the expert on the Solfeggio frequencies in the United States, if not in the world. He spent many, many years discovering this matrix, and we're going to go through exactly how he was able to put that together. The Solfeggio frequencies, as we're going to find out today, are not just a set of 6 or 9 tones that were originally discovered from the Middle Ages, but actually encompasses a broad range of frequencies, all of which have a specific part to play in the creative process. And we'll be getting into that today. So I guess we might as well begin. We're going to start today with, again, as the introduction to the Solfeggio Matrix. Before we begin, I mentioned this last week, and I want to bring it up again. We've enjoyed working with GW so much. I want to let people know about a class that he's putting on with another individual called A Course in Wonders 2. Lori and I are actually just beginning to go through the first course ourselves right now. But this course, as you can see, Healing Codes for a Better Life, it's going to be starting on May 7th of next year. Here's an outline of the courses. I think there's 7 classes. The role of release, out with the old, in with the new. The role of receiving, healing relationships, moving beyond birth imprinting, reprogramming lifelong patterns, and life review before you're dead. It's never too late to learn. So for those of you who are interested in that, go to gwhardin.com and you can sign up for the course there on the website. I'm looking forward to it. And I know the first couple of sessions that I've been able to listen to so far in the Course 1 material are outstanding. So without further ado, I want to start today. And Lori and Lisa, please chime in with any comments as we go through the slides. But I wanted to give everybody a brief introduction first to Solfeggio healing frequencies. And I picked this up from a number of different places on the internet. But Gregorian chants have a measurable influence on human psychology and physiology. And those who perform the chants experience the lowest heart rates and blood pressure of the day while singing, according to Alan Watkins, a neuroscience lecturer at Imperial College in London. I'm going to stop here and just say that I had never thought about that, but I started using these frequencies 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I did actually take my pulse a couple of times over the last few weeks, and it's down about 6 beats a minute. So seeing this, I can now correlate that, in fact, that is the case, and it seems to have worked for me. So scientists have also observed that monastic singers require much less sleep, as little as 2 hours a day. And I've also got to say that I'm not sleeping as much since I began using these frequencies as well. So to continue on, some listen to chant recordings to enter trance states, others to relieve disease symptoms or depression. Sister Ruth Stanley, a Benedictine nun and head of complementary medicine at Minnesota St. Cloud Hospitals, observed that patients who listen to chant and plain song experience relief from chronic pain. But there are less obvious reasons for well-being and health listeners to experience. The 6 original solfeggio notes each have a hertz or cycle per second frequency. Contemporary musical scale frequencies are not identical to the original notes. In the 20th century, those wishing to play in the original solfeggio frequency scale tuned theirs with special tuning forks or frequency measuring devices. We've been using up until now frequency tone generators from our cell phones, but we're going to be getting into more advanced ways to do that both today and next week. Now I want to show you some pictures of solfeggio geometry and cymatics. For those of you who've been watching our live streams, you know that geometry can become a number. It can become geometry, can also become a shape or a form. And so cymatics is the science of observing the effects of sound and frequency on matter.
Hey, Charlie, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm just seeing a green screen here. I'm not sure what you're wanting people to see.
Oh, really? Goodness gracious. What's going on? Let's see. Are you seeing it now?
No, Solfeggio geometry and cymatics. Is that what you're wanting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, to continue on. Yeah, please tell me if you're not seeing the screen pages when I click on them. But a CymaScope study shows images of the solfeggio frequencies, and each frequency image contains nodes and antinodes on the tops and bottoms of physical standing waves. So anyway, what I wanted to show you was these are some cymatic diagrams of the 6 original solfeggio frequencies that were discovered, and you can see the beauty and the symmetry of each of these tones. And essentially, again, what's going on is a sound is played. The black in the each of the pictures is most likely a piece of rubber upon which perhaps sand or another object is placed that can vibrate. And by doing so, you achieve these beautiful patterns from playing a particular sound frequency. And as we can see, each of these frequencies, as we move up the frequency scale, becomes more complex, but are always symmetrical and beautiful to the eye. So now to get on to a little bit to the science behind the solfeggio frequencies, the scientific community began connecting the dots between the type of music played and the variety of physical effects on the human body. In 1988, a biochemist named Dr. Glenn Rhine made a discovery that confirmed what the ancient spiritual traditions understood when he tested the impact of different music on human DNA. Rhine exposed similar DNA vials to 4 different kinds of music with different frequencies: Gregorian chants, Sanskrit chants, classical, and rock. And by measuring the rate of UV light absorption, an essential function for a healthy DNA, Rhine was able to assess the effects of each type of music. And the results will make you reconsider the type of music you want to listen to when you want to relax. The Gregorian and Sanskrit chants had the most positive impacts, even healing effects, by increasing UV light absorption between 5 to 9%. The classical music increased UV light absorption by a small amount, and rock music decreased UV light absorption, harming the DNA. Rhine's research supported the theory that sound frequencies do produce serious effects, for better or worse, on health and well-being. And since Rhine's discovery, further research has come to light that shows that solfeggio frequencies have profound mental, emotional, and physical effects. And additionally, this understanding has led to music therapy becoming established as a health profession to help individuals therapeutically using various aspects of music creation and listening. A 2018 study from Japan, for example, discovered that music tuned to the frequency of 528, which is the DNA healing frequency of the solfeggio frequencies that most people are familiar with, significantly reduces stress in the endocrine systems and autonomic nervous systems, even after a mere 5 minutes of listening.
You know, isn't that something, just really quickly, that
Yeah.
528, I mean, we just kind of like read over it, but how significant it is to have a frequency be able to do that. I mean, I want to think about that for a minute, because so many times we just kind of like act as if, oh, it's no big deal, nothing, you know. This is very significant, and that's what we want to stress, the part that these sounds and these frequencies are so significant. And then you put them with the pyramid, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. So I just wanted to reiterate that while you're saying that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And, you know, to follow up on that, we're going to be talking about how in this next week, how the pyramid actually works with the DNA itself and the geometry of the DNA. We'll be getting into all of that later today and next week. But anyway, also in a study published in the Journal of Addiction Research and Therapy, the frequency of 528 reduced the toxic effects of alcohol, the principal ingredient found in alcoholic drinks, on the cells. Here's a really profound one. Even more astounding was the fact that this frequency also increased cell life by about 20%. So the energizing and healing effects of music set to 528 make it ideal background music at any time you feel under the weather or simply need to unwind. Now, one of the things that I want to point out before we continue, this research has been done on the 528 frequency. There's been much less research that's been done on the Solfeggio Matrix that GW Hardin has discovered, and we're going to go into today. So we're going to be undertaking some significant attempts to research the entire set of frequencies.
Charlie,
yes.
Lisa's trying to talk here.
Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is a great book as well, Charlie, right specifically on the 528 hertz frequency by Dr. Leonard Horowitz. That's perfect. I was going to get to that in a second. That's right. So, to continue on, this is a research paper that was done by Sonia Joseph for her graduate degree thesis, and it's a review of sound healing using solfeggio frequencies. And what this paper does is it says this research paper intends to educate individuals how they can use music therapy, electromagnetic sound frequencies, and solfeggio sound science to heal mind, body, and spirit. And we're not going to go into this today. That's going to be a subject for next week. But what's beautiful about this paper is it's essentially an anthology of all the major research that's been done. So I've got a bibliography. I pulled down all of the articles over the weekend, and I'll be researching those and going through the specific research that has been done to date on solfeggio frequencies, and be reporting that next week. Now, for those of you who are familiar, Brendan Murphy has done quite a bit of work on solfeggio frequencies, and I think this article is relevant in our discussion because he goes to great lengths in discussing where the solfeggio frequencies came from. And some of this is going to be a little monotonous, but it's going to help as we go forward. And it's also going to start to raise some questions, hopefully in everyone's minds, as to why this information was lost for so long. So, miracle healings, exalted music, suppression, mystery, intrigue. These are just some of the evocative words associated with the 6 primary tones of the increasingly popular solfeggio scale. But where did these solfeggio frequencies come from, and why should we care? 2 men in particular deserve the bulk of credit for the fact that anyone today is talking about the solfeggio scale outside of musty esoteric music theory circles. They are Dr. Leonard Horowitz, a Harvard-educated independent researcher, and respected naturopathic physician and herbalist Dr. Joseph Palaio. Though there is no universal enforceable musical tuning, much of the contemporary Western world has standardized to a A equals 440 hertz tuning, as allegedly advocated by Joseph Goebbels and the Nazis. And here he details a story of what may have happened. And this, the article that this links to does discuss the fact that there was research done in World War II on the harmful effects of A440 tuning. But anyway, however, something interesting occurs when you tune to A44 instead, which he's going to get to. Horowitz put the so-called solfeggio tones on the public map with his hard-hitting healing codes for the biological apocalypse, and additionally in the Book of 528 that Lisa just mentioned. Now, both of these books are available. You can hold that one up, Lisa. Yeah, are available on Amazon as Kindle books for $9.99 each. Now,
well,
if
no
you
one's
try
going to see it. Lisa, hold it up when you're on camera next time.
Go ahead and talk, Lisa, so you'll be on camera.
Here you go, guys. It's backwards, but there you go. It's a great book. I mean, it talks about all kinds of things too, even divine music, the key of 528. It talks about the mathematics, the specific vibration of it. It even goes into music and how different cults utilize different frequencies for certain things and how they program you and stuff that way. Yeah.
So we've got both this book and the healing codes. I ordered healing codes over the weekend and I have it downloaded. I just haven't had a chance to open it up yet.
But they also have pyramid geometry in there as well, Charlie. They
oh, fantastic.
Pyramid geometry. Yep.
Wonderful. So we've got a lot to research here. But again, this is just an introduction. But anyway, while Palaio was researching the tones, he did some phoning around, trying to discover the significance of the opening lines of Diakonos' hymn to the Baptist. On the phone to a Catholic Monsignor, Palaio inquired, well then, could you tell me what the ut quiant laxus means? And the Monsignor said, it's none of your business, and then he hung up. So one wonders why elements of the church are so protective and guarded regarding this hymn. What else are we missing here? But the redoubtable Palaio was undeterred. Before we finish this is so analogous to what we found months ago about the dunce cap, that in fact the dunce cap was information was suppressed again by the Catholic Church because they didn't want people to understand that there could be enlightenment from outside of the church. Joey knew that there were 6 verses to St. John the Baptist's sacred hymn. Each verse was chanted in a different ancient solfeggio frequency. The sacred music he knew could resonate water to divinely anoint herbal formulas. Joey's Catholic Intelligence Network could or would not provide the intelligence he sought. So Dr. Palaio took his quest to Jesus and prayed for the musical revelation. Soon thereafter, he awoke to a vision of Jesus standing beside next to a huge angel. The vision did not appear when he opened or closed his eyes. Joey reported that while in this altered state, Jesus showed him a section of the Bible's Book of Numbers, chapter 7, beginning with verse 12, wherein the 6 magical frequencies are hidden in the verse numbers. Joey found and deciphered them and found them to be the numbers 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, and 852. So he goes on, these were passed down to Levitical priests from ancient pre-Egyptian mystics. So the Levites later encrypted the pure tones in the verse numbers of the Bible for posterity. And he says that, I believe it's worth pondering that Horowitz is stating that the provenance of these tones, or the origin of these tones, are thoroughly pre-Christian, that is to say, pagan. So the upshot was, to finish up, that Palaio worked out how each frequency was embedded in John the Baptist's hymn, where it had, according to Horowitz, been buried centuries earlier by Levitical priests who opened to preserve the information. So he goes on to ask, so seriously, where did the frequencies come from? How did we get these without any technology to measure and indicate frequencies? How could one have precise and identified these 6 tones and known what frequencies they were? He goes on to say, it is quite possible that prophets, diviners, and seers or psychics of the time received these numbers through occult means, as if channeling them from the collective unconscious or akashic records. After all, and this now we'll see where this ties in from last week, these numbers are most definitely embedded in the matrix of creation, as mathematician Marco Rodin has shown, along with Vic Scholl. So I guess I'm going to ask Lisa and Lori if you have any, if that thesis that these came perhaps from a channeling source resonates with either or both of you.
Well, I absolutely resonate with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Me too. I've always used the 528.
I'm sorry, say it again, Lisa.
I do too. I've always resonated with the 528 hertz frequency specifically. It resonates more with the heart frequency. And that's what I do when I'm actually making my capstones. As they're curing, I play the 528 hertz frequency to embed that frequency in them as well before I send them to the
so cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. So anyway, with that as introduction, now it's time to get into the work of GW Hardin. I just pulled a brief biography off of his website. He's a best-selling author of The Messengers. He's committed to bringing important and provocative messages to public awareness. His works have been recognized by children and adults. He's appeared on radio and TV. He is a graduate in mathematics from the University of Washington, and I guess that's probably why I relate to him so much, because he has just done an amazing job, as you'll see as we move forward, figuring out this matrix. So he lives in Denver, Colorado, and he continues to work on books. And as I mentioned, he's doing internet-based classes right now. So now this information from GW is coming from over 10 years ago, but it's a good introduction to how he got involved. And we'll start with what he calls the grand solfeggio tones. There are 3 levels to the solfeggio tones: the archetypal or earthly, which is the sequence that we're all familiar with, And then there's also the divine or heavenly and the universal or cosmic. And within each level, there are two components, the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is made up of 9 tones in each level, while the masculine is made up of 6 tones. The history, and this is what I want to focus on today, his version of the history begins with King David, who then passed the secrets on to Solomon. Sometime after Solomon, the tones were lost. David was given 6 tones, which he created with strings on his lyre. These tones were all used with the Psalms, also created by David. The mathematics of the tones matches the mathematics of the Psalms. Solomon used the tones in the gematria, am I saying that right? And the creation of the Song of Songs, also a psalm. This was considered the most sacred of the Psalms. During the creation of Gregorian chant, the solfeggio tones were rediscovered. These based on 5 notes, later a 6th note was added. These were based on the discoveries of Pythagoras and his harmony of the spheres. They also were later lost. In the 1990s, to continue, Dr. Joey Paleo was given the secret of the gematria and a version of the actual frequencies in appearances of Jeshua or Jesus and an angel that Dr. Paleo did not name. After the turn of the millennium, Joseph Crane, another individual, was told in an appearance of Archangel Michael that 2 solfeggio scales existed, one profane and one sacred. The sacred solfeggio had been known as the secret solfeggio. And Joe Crane had discovered 6 of these frequencies to the sacred solfeggio and then added a 7th, all to be used in healing. Michael and Gabriel verified the existence of the tones and more recently told Crane that a subset of the frequencies existed called the divine masculine frequencies. Well, anyway, in the last, this was written about 10 years ago. So actually this was about 10 years ago. The code of both solfeggios was cracked by GW Hardin through the guidance of Archangel Gabriel and shown to be linked together mathematically. During the process, yet a 3rd set of solfeggio frequencies showed up in the mathematics using what is called the Pythagorean skein. The 3rd set is made up of the sum of the first 2 sets. And we'll be going through all of this here in a few minutes, so don't be concerned. What also shows up is an entire fractal system of solfeggios that affect specific parts of the body. So to summarize what Joseph Crane found was the sequence of tones that were delivered to him through an angel, and the ones from that were discovered through Dr. Joseph Paleo are on the bottom. Now let's start with the ones on the bottom first, because this is the frequency set that we're all used to seeing, and I want to go through this so you can begin to see some of the order that exists in these frequency sets. To begin with, you'll see that the set that includes 528 on the bottom, if you start with the tone 174, if you add 11 to that, you get 285. And once again, if you add 11 to that, you get 396. So each of these varies by 111, going up the frequency scale. The same thing is true with the scale that was determined by Joseph Crane. You start with 186, go to 297. What you'll also notice is that using that same addition of adding 111 to each of the frequencies, Hardin was able to complete the Solfeggio matrix, and you'll notice that it actually loops back onto itself. And we'll go through how you get from 975 to 186 here in a few minutes. And for those of you who are really fast at math, you're also going to notice, for example, in the top one, if you look at 429 and go to 531, you know that that's not 111. So you're going to want to know, well, how did that happen? I made the same mistake when I was talking to contacting GW Hardin the first time, because I thought there were mistakes there. But what I didn't understand, and we're going to get into in a minute, is that these frequencies are not based upon base 10 mathematics, but are based upon the same base 9 vortex mathematics that we talked about last week. So I wanted to show you how this third seed, as it were, was actually developed. And this will help you to understand how GW actually developed this third frequency matrix. Now, the ones that had been discovered by Paleo and Joseph Crane are the archetypal and the divine, which are in these last two right columns. So to go over the math of how this occurs, if you add 174 and 186 together, you're going to come up with a total of 261 in base 9. But, you know, I'm just thinking, before we do that, why don't I explain how base 9 works? So let me do this first, and we'll come back to that. Let me explain a typical base 9 mathematical function. And what I've done, we've got going across here, we have each of these so-called seeds actually increases by 12 going across. And you'll see, if you go from 111 plus 12 is 123, plus 12 is 135, plus 12 is 147, plus 12 is 159. But if you continued to work in base 10, if you added 12, you'd end up with 171, not 162. So I want to explain to everybody, before we continue much further, how you do addition in base 9 vortex mathematics. So what I've done is take the 152 or 159 plus 12, and I've done the math for you. So there's no carrying of tens, there's no zeros in this mathematics, so you have to think in a slightly different way. But when you add those two together to come up with 162, the way you do that, the 1 stays the same, 5 plus 1 is still 6, but 9 plus 2 is actually equal to 11, which in base 9 reduction, you add the sums of those two numbers, 1 plus 1 together, and you reduce it to 2. And that's the way you end up with 162 when you add 159 plus 12 in base 9. Does everybody kind of get that? I'm going to give a few more examples here, and we'll come back to the subject matter in a minute. You can take 999 and add 111 to it to see how these loop back upon themselves, and we'll come back to that. But 9 plus 1, it would be equal to 10, and that would reduce to 1 in each of these three cases. So 999 plus 111 ends up summing to 111 in base 9. Similarly with these numbers, if you take 912 at the bottom of the page and add 111 to it, you'd add 9 plus 1 is equal to 10. That would reduce to 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So that should hopefully give you some idea as to how base 9 mathematics works. Any questions so far? Because we're going to be covering lots of material. Well, continuing on to finish up how GW Hardin figured out this universal scale was by adding each of these associated frequencies from the two other scales together and coming up with the equivalent in base 9. So if you add the 174 and the 186 together, you're going to see that again, 1 plus 1 is 2, 7 plus 8 is 15, but that reduces to 6, and 4 plus 1 is 10, which reduces to 1. So when you add those two together in base 9, you end up with a frequency of 261. Now, if we go over to this universal set of frequencies, we're going to see that 261, in fact, does exist as the second frequency in that scale. Now, if you take 285 and 297, add those together, that's going to be equal to 483, which we're going to find in the fourth, as the fourth note in this combined scale. Similarly, 396 plus 318 ends up being in the sixth position, and 417 and 429 at 837 ends up in the eighth position. And if you continue down, you're going to find that these frequencies add up to positions 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 in what's called the universal or cosmic scale. Now, I don't know exactly why, but I think that it's relevant to see that when you add these up, you end up with positions 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 in that scale. I don't know why that happens, but it does, and I'm sure that as we get into this in greater detail, we're going to find out why that's the case. But you can see this is just the beginnings of some amazing information that's going to come forward in this matrix. So this is the page that we're probably going to spend, well, we are going to spend the most time on, because this shows you exactly how, now that Hardin had these three sets of frequencies established through mathematics, he was able to figure out all of these 9 seeds and how he actually came upon this this matrix. So what we're going to do is look down at the bottom of the page. You're going to see what makes a scale a solfeggio. And he had in this diagram, which is on his webpage, by the way, soundsofwonder.com. All of this information is coming from his website. But the first one is all of the tones in sequential order must be 111 hertz apart using Pythagorean or base 9 mathematics. So let's start with that one and double check. 111 plus 111 is 212, 222. 222 plus 111 is 333. We can do the same thing with the 2 seed here. 135 plus 11 is 246. 246 plus 111 is 357, and so forth. And again, you're going to find that in base 9, to go to the seed 4 and 5, for example, when you add 111 to 159, you're not going to get the answer in base 10. You have to convert it to base 9. So adding 9 plus 1 to 9 gives you 10 or reduces to 1. And 5 plus 1 equals 6, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. So again, this works throughout this series if you do all of your computations in base 9. Now, each scale or seed going across the page is 12 hertz apart from its adjoining scale. So once again, if we go across the page, 111 plus 12 is equal to 123. 123 plus 12 equals 135. 135 plus 12, 147. Now here's again 159. And 159 plus 12, again, you have to take 9 plus 2, which is equal to 11, and reduce that to 2 to come up with the 162. But you can do that with each of the rows, and you'll find that each one of these scales or seeds is exactly 12 hertz apart from the adjoining scale. So that's another necessary condition for the solfeggio matrix. The third one is adding any two or more frequencies will always yield another solfeggio frequency. I think this is just fascinating. So I'm just going to pick a couple of numbers and we're going to see how that works. We're going to add under the 5-4 seed, the 627, which is in the column of connection, to 615. So if we do that math, we've got 7 and 5 is 12. That reduces to 3. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. And 6 plus 6 is 12. So that would be 3. So do we find a 333? We absolutely do. And it's, it's in the 9 seed or 9 scale column. So we could do this with any two of these numbers, and we would find that the sum of those numbers in base 9 is going to be one of these solfeggio frequencies. Another characteristic of this matrix is that the sum of the scale frequencies will always add to 999. So if we take, for example, this one's pretty easy to do. We could add up 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10, which reduces to 1. 1 plus 5 is 6, 6 plus 6 is 12, reduces to 3. 3 plus 7 is 10, reduces to 1. 1 plus 8 equals 9. And you can see that that works for each of the 3 columns. Now, I'm not going to do that for any more of these because it gets complex and I'll probably make a mistake. But that is what they're talking about there, that you can sum these up and they will work. Also, the horizontal sum of all frequencies across all scales also always adds up to 999. And we can do that again, at least for the what we traditionally call the ones column in the first column. And we'll see that 1 plus 3 equals 4, 4 plus 4 equals 5, 5 plus 7 equals 12, which reduces to 3, 3 plus 9 equals 12, which reduces to 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 2 equals 9, 9 plus 6 equals 15, which reduces to 6, 6 plus, well, let's see, did I make a mistake here? I must have. Let's see, 1, 4, 9. Yeah, I knew I would do this. But anyway, you can do that on your own time, but going across is going to add up to 999 as well. Sorry about that. Now, the horizontal sum of all frequencies, oh, that's right, also adds up to 999. Now, here are some additional interesting aspects of this matrix that I found, and Hardin also talks about in some of his other work. Summing the 3 numbers in each tone always results in a 3, 6, or 9. So just to pick the top tone in the 3 seed, 1 plus 4 equals 5, 5 plus 7 equals 12, which reduces to 3, 2 plus 5 equals 7, 7 and 8 equals 15, which reduces to 6. And we're going to show a special slide to demonstrate some further interesting aspects of that as well in a minute. Now, number 7, the difference between each digit in a seed of frequency is the same. The difference is used to define the 9 different seeds. So let me try to explain what I mean by that. You see that each of these seeds or scales is numbered with a number, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the way that these seeds are developed is by looking at the difference between each number and figuring out the difference. So a 1 seed, you can add 1 plus 1 and get the second seed, which is 2. Add 2 plus 1 and you get 3, which is the third number in that frequency. Similarly, if we go to the 4 seed column, 4 or 5 seed, the difference is 4. So if we take 1 and add 4 to it, you get 5. And if you add 4 to add 5 and 4 together, you get 9. So you get the idea. That's the reason why each of these are called a 1 seed, a 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, and so forth, because that's the difference in value between each of the seeds. And you can, now the 9 seed, you could say, oh, well, they're all the same. Another way to look at that is, as we've seen before, it's the same as adding 9 to each number. So in the case of 1, 1, 1, if you added 9 to 1, you get 10, which reduces to 1, and that works. If you add 9 to 2, you get 11, which reduces to 2, and so forth. So that's why they're called the 9 seeds. Let's see, moving on. Adding the corresponding archetypal and divine frequency produces the universal frequency, and we've seen that before. And then the next one, I've got to move something here. Adding the corresponding frequency each of the 3 and 6 seed frequencies loop back on themselves. So what do I mean by that? If you, just a minute, let's see. Part of this isn't showing up on the page. I'm going to see if I can skip out from this format. Well, I can't do it. There we go. It's showing up now. Each of the 3 and 6 seed frequencies loop back on themselves. And finally, well, I guess that's true of all of them, to be honest. But number 10, this is important. The second and third digits of each 3rd and 6th seed frequency are mirror images. So let me explain what we're talking about here. If you look at the first frequency in seed 3 is 147, and in the 6th seed, it's 174. It's 258. In the second frequency, it's 285, 369, 396, 471, 417. So you get the idea there. So there's a lot of scaling. There's a lot of symmetry in this. And just to further go through, as I mentioned before, each of these is going to, when you sum up the digits in the each of the seeds, you're going to get a 3, a 6, or a 9, as we've seen before. So if you look at the 9 seed, what I've done has been to sum up these in base 9. And with the 9 seed, we get a pattern of 369, 369, 369. In the first seed, we start with 6, and we get 693, 693, 693. And then in the second seed, we get 936, 936, 936. And this pattern repeats, starting 369, 369, 369. And sure enough, at the end, with the 8th seed, you loop back onto the 9th seed by using, again, just adding 12 to each of the digits, and you return back to the 9 seed. And you can see that the summation of these continues in one consistent pattern of 369, 639, 936 throughout, and this continues on continuously in a loop. Now, I know this is probably boring to a lot of you, but we're just about done with the mathematics, and hopefully next week we won't be going through this as much, but I'm just trying to show you the beauty of this mathematical sequence and the fact that the universe, this can't be an accident that we find this type of order. And we'll be just showing that and demonstrating it next week. Now, this slide is the last one with numbers on it, so bear with me. But when I first started learning about vortex mathematics a couple of weeks ago, I made the decision to see if the Solfeggio frequency had a pattern to it. So all of these numbers on the left, this is nothing more than a simple Excel spreadsheet that I put together. And what it does, just to, for those of you who are unfamiliar, you basically, to come up with Solfeggio numbers, you start with
Your
0
screen
and 1.
disappeared, Charlie.
The page
Your
disappeared?
screen disappeared, Charlie.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
goodness.
just green screen right now.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get it back. Is it there now?
Yep.
Okay,
There.
I don't know what's going on. Thank you, though.
Yeah. Yep.
So on the left-hand column, if you look at Solfeggio frequencies, you start with 0 and 1, and then each Solfeggio frequency or number is based upon the sum of the two previous ones. So in other words, we have 0 and 1 equals 1, then 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, and so forth. So I did this out for, something around 40 digits. Now, when you convert that to base 9, and that's what I do in the second column, you end up with the following pattern. 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8. But then when we get to 13, we have to start using our base 9, reduction methodology. So 1 plus 3 equals 4, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 4 equals 7, and so forth. Well, I did this, and I didn't see a pattern here until I read some of GW Hardin's articles that are on his websites. And so I pulled up a relevant paragraph from one of his more recent works, and I think you'll see why all of this mathematics is very, very relevant right now to our discussion and to the pyramid and Solfeggio frequencies. And what he says is that from angelic appearances from Joseph Crane and Joseph Palaio, I ultimately discovered a mathematical pattern that Pythagoras himself used, called the Pythagorean skein, or base 9 mathematics. From these numbers, I saw an inherent Fibonacci numbering system. At the time, I did not know that the Fibonacci sequences worked not only in base 10, but also in numbering systems from 2 to 9. And out of that, I discovered in base 9 that there are 4 sequences that govern all of life. In anything living, you will see these 4 sequences. Now, we're going to focus on 2 of these, the first one and the last one. But the first one is directly correlated to the information that I had done on the left. As I said, I did this and I didn't immediately see the pattern. But notice where I put these little asterisks. If you'll continue, or excuse me, yeah, if the asterisk over here, if you look, I'm going to read the vertical columns off of here, and you follow along, and you're going to see that the sequence matches perfectly. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 4, 3, 7, 1, 8, 9, 8, 8, 7, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 2, 8, 1, 9, 1. And that is a perfect match with the first row of numbers that Hardin had put together. So what this is saying, and why this is important, the pyramid, the pyramid, Russian pyramid geometry is based upon the geometry of the phi spiral. And the phi spiral is created by solfeggio numbers. So in other words, Hardin has told us in this first column that this scaling in base 9 of the Fibonacci sequence, or the phi ratio, is inherent in all human life. And we're going to get into that again next week. Now, something that I've done at the bottom of this page, you see I've got another asterisk here that separates this chain of 24 items into 2 groups of 12. Now, I've taken the first 12 and I placed them in the first line below, starting with 1 and ending in 8. And then I've taken the second 12 numbers that start with 8 and end with 1, and I've put those below. And when you sum those numbers, interestingly enough, you end up with 9, which is the totality of knowledge in base 9 mathematics. So there's clearly some fascinating stuff for us to proceed in looking at going forward. But clearly, this is all coming together in a mathematical formula, which shows that geometry can become a scale or an angle. It can become frequency, and all of these things are related together. So to finish up for today, these 4 strings of sequences weave in wondrous combinations to create what the angels call the fabric of the universe. They also just so happen to make up the entire Solfeggio matrix when turned into a helix-like DNA. Once more, all of these numbers in the Solfeggio matrix are harmony-based. Adding any 2 or more Solfeggio numbers creates another Solfeggio number that is a Pythagorean harmonic of the original. And we did that earlier today. So the entire Solfeggio matrix is a complete torus of never-ending harmony. Now, this last paragraph, I think, is a great place to stop for today. Where humans get sidetracked is when anything that is not in harmony infects us. Any harmonic system is death to the AI matrix. Now, this is coming from an article where he's talking about 5G and artificial intelligence in our current culture. So that's the context of that sentence.
Well, I just want to add that these frequencies are the purest truth you're ever going to get in your existence. So just think about that. All the lies that we have been told throughout our existence, this is the truest thing you're going to get. And what's amazing, it takes you to your own spiritual truth. And when you connect to your own spiritual truth, the things that happen to you is you become calmer, you recognize that everything is fine, that the whole world is exactly where it needs to be. And there's a calming sensation that you can then go about your existence doing what it is that you feel is most significant to be of service to others.
Perfect. So to summarize the last 2 sentences, and I think this is something we really, you got to focus on. Whenever 2 systems interact, one of them being harmonious, the disharmonious will always end up in training to the harmonious. That's because the fabric of life was originally created out of complete harmony.
Mm-hmm.
So we could, and I think it's probably a good time to maybe open it up for discussion, but you know, Dr. Golod says in his pyramids.ru website that the pyramid creates harmony for anything that is near it or inside of it. And that's why, as Lori was saying, we all end up being more peaceful inside the pyramid, because it's harmonizing our frequencies and taking those disharmonious frequencies and entraining them to harmony. And just to digress for a minute, I know I had a viewer on YouTube who, was questioning last week a video I had done several years ago, not even to do with pyramids, but it had to do with harmonizing the frequencies. But it was in the context of EMFs, and he wanted to know why I didn't use an EMF meter to test for the existence, presence, or absence of EMFs. And the person didn't understand that we are all creatures of vibration and frequency. And if we were to ever not be able to measure frequencies, that would mean that frequencies and life itself would no longer exist. So what is happening here, and I know a lot of people, but this is true with, I think, disease, it's true with anything. If your body or something inside your body is not in harmony with life itself, then if your body is not in harmony, those things can do harm. But if your body is harmonious, and these frequencies are an excellent way to bring your body into harmony, your immune function goes up, your perspective on life changes, you're much more at peace. So there's just so much to be discussing about this when we begin to apply all of this next week and in the coming weeks. So,
well, in the simplest form that, you go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, I utilize the same type of description to tell people about crystal healing, for example. It's vibration. Harmony is vibration. So and it's all science. If you have a higher vibration and a lower vibration and they come into contact, science says they have to balance each other out. So that unharmonious is going to become more harmonious that way. That lower vibration is going to increase to a higher vibration.
Well, and just remember the intention behind everything that you do. That's the most significant thing. And when you have clarity of that, the harmony part of it comes through even quicker, faster, and easier. So
yeah, definitely.
So anyway, I promise everyone watching that is for all intents and purposes, that I'm not going to be doing any more math when we get back to, because I know it puts a lot of people to sleep. But what is always helpful for me, what brought me to pyramids in the first place was scientific research, and I guess I'll always have an orientation in that direction. But what's really important for me, to know that there's a scientific basis for anything allows me to increase my belief that something's going to work. So actually, I'm hoping to get most of you to understand is there is a pattern of creation in the universe. There is a pattern of harmony. And as we're going to see, the pyramid fits into that pattern of harmony and creation. And it has a dramatic impact in resonating frequencies, ideas, thoughts into harmonious being with the field. So anyway, I'm going to open it up in a minute, but first, just for next week, I'm going to go over some of the scientific research on the Solfeggio frequencies, how the pyramid geometry creates harmony. I'm going to be talking about DNA in all of this as well, and how the pyramid geometry and Solfeggio frequencies interact with DNA. Now that you understand or have a flavor for the geometry here, you're going to be fascinated to find out that the geometry of your DNA matches perfectly with the Solfeggio frequency matrix and the geometry of the Fibonacci series, which is inherent in the geometry of the pyramid. But after that, we're going to try to start to begin talking about how to apply this information. And really, I guess at this point, I know Lori had a chance last week to be on the phone with me for 3 hours with GW. So if you'd like, maybe you can open it up and start to talk about applications that you see for this type and the types of results that you've begun to achieve to close out for the day.
You know, what's interesting to me with GW is it seems as though everything that I have learned on my own, a lot of stuff that I know you can't find in a textbook. And yet I read his articles last week, soaked it in. We spoke with him and it felt like everything fit like a glove. And some of the stuff that he was saying was just fascinating to me, and I felt it, but I was kind of going along with it. Like the angelic realm has a more organized way of doing it, and they want you to do it this way, this way, this way, this way. And it's not working with our consciousness today that they have to learn from us today. That was a big eye-opening thing. Never looked at it from that concept, but I liked it. He explained, I used the word want, and I loved how he said, I don't care for that word. And it's true, because we'd like to say possibilities in our existence, and just recognizing that consciousness is the future and that we're creating that reality. And we have a tendency to fall back to what we know, again, from our subconscious of what we learned from 1 to 7, and that we always fall back to what we know instead of just allowing what the possibilities could be. So that was a very big thing for me, simply because, I clear a lot of energies a lot of times. And if somebody says I'm struggling in this area, I'm like, no problem, let me clear it. And next thing you know, they're not struggling with that anymore. So I've done it all along, but didn't really recognize the dynamics of it and how it actually works. And this kind of put it in play to go, oh, this is what I'm doing, and this is how it works. And I just absolutely loved it. It was so easy. As Michael Phillips has written in our comments, even just talking about these solfeggio frequencies, I just sat and did the 1098 fractal tone while you were talking the entire time. And I believe it was saying it does something with the mitochondria DNA. And so I could feel it the entire time while you were talking about the numbers. And just really quickly, the God fingerprint that you showed last week, correct? Isn't that what these tones are doing, is going in that design or that image that you showed us last week that looks like the Freemason symbol kind of thing?
Yes. Okay. Yes. That is
So
a two-dimensional representation of the infinity symbol and so forth. Yes.
Right. So I thought maybe even just giving that concept out, people understand that's why we're doing it, because there is an actual sequence of how the universe works. And all Charlie is doing is putting it out there so you understand it, so you don't go against the grain, you go with the flow and allow it to happen. And in your mind of your consciousness that's already in the future and has already got it played out, try not to allow your subconscious to stop it or not allow it. So you're just trying to allow it to flow and do what it is that's in divine harmony and order. So that was what I took from it.
Sure. And two other topics that we'll start to work on that I think were important from our discussion with GW. Well, maybe three. One, he talks of the fact that what we are doing with the solfeggio frequencies and with our intention is we are that reality is actually created, or what we end up perceiving as reality is created in the future. This is an interesting concept, and that he ties this in with Nassim Haramein's unified field theory, that actually what happens is these frequencies assist in developing the pathways into our subconscious mind to allow for to bypass, so to speak, our subconscious belief system, and to create there's infinite possibilities into the future. But by putting our intention out there, we are able to collapse these potentialities into a concrete reality, or we assist in that fashion. He also discussed ways, for example, and we're going to be looking at this in the near future. He's instructed us that there are better ways to get the tones than to use a traditional speaker from your cell phone or what have you, and to create what are called scalar frequencies rather than the traditional sine wave frequencies. And that's going to require using a coil, at least for most of us. And we're going to be doing research on that over the coming weeks to improve that. One of the things that Hardin said is that there are blocks in our subconscious mind that often keep us from being able to access or to change in our subconscious, which controls the vast majority of the things that happen to us, because that's where our belief systems are housed and so forth. So we're going to be building or trying to build or find people to show you or to direct you to build coils to assist in turning these frequencies from sound into scalar wave frequencies. And I can't wait to do that. Hardin has actually developed something that he calls the CIRQ, C-I-R-Q.
Can't wait to
I'm getting mine today. Lori, I don't know if you've got. Yeah.
I ordered mine before you. How are you getting yours today?
I don't know, but I got an email, so I was hoping that you had yours. So look for it today. But this CIRQ is based. Yeah,
but
it's based.
I wanted to say, I don't know what you did as far as, because I mean, the minute we got this information, I felt like it was Christmas all over again.
It is. Oh, it is.
You know, it's so exciting. So I ended up doing, and Lisa, maybe you're not familiar with this. I don't know if Charlie talked to you about this or not, but you can take 2 of those frequency tones and you can put it inside your pyramid, and you can go through a gateway. What it does is it creates a chaos in your energy. And when you have this chaos, it takes you through a gateway. Well, I ended up going through 555 different gateways, and I used the frequency tone 222 and 444. Unbelievable. I cannot tell you how amazing that was. And I didn't need to do it for long. I did it for about 25 minutes and that was it. But it was incredible. And it's just like what you're saying. Now, growing up and hearing what my mom would say about spirituality and whatever else, I would have never thought of things like gateways or portals or vortexes or stuff like that. And as I started meditating and really getting into my abilities, I had to let go some of those paradigms and beliefs I had in order to just allow. Now, I still have a ton of them, don't get me wrong. Otherwise, I'd be able to, appear next to Charlie or levitate. I mean, there's so many things that we can do as humans. It's just we have this deep, seated belief that's not only in this lifetime, but previous lifetimes. So, I mean, they're very significant and very strong. So the more we work on this, the more we work on frequencies, those higher frequencies that, Charlie, you had just contacted me and said, hey, I know why you like these higher frequencies.
I did,
right?
Yeah.
And it's true. It is true. The higher you go, the more it does what, Charlie?
Well, we're getting into next week's information, but that's okay. But I'll give you a sneak preview. It improves. I believe it's the endocrine gland or something, and so
dopamine. It gives you some dopamine. And those that smoke weed, let me tell you, when you're smoking weed, the dopamine is just being pulled out. And so just the most significant things of your existence you may not be aware of, but this helps increase it and makes it better. So It's just fascinating. And yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, you recommended me to try the 444 and 222 hertz frequencies at the same time. I haven't had that chance, but I'm going to do it right after the show today. So I'll let you know all about it. I'm hoping I go through all those portals as well.
Well, that's right. And there's a list. What Lori's referring to, I was going to talk about maybe next week, but we can do it now briefly. He has come up with some of these gateway frequencies, and so there's a listing of those. We'll have them up next week and show you how you can access those. And hopefully, Lori, you and Lisa can experiment with those and give the audience next week, an idea as to the experiences that you've had using those.
GW had this machine. Oh my gosh, he had this machine, and
Yep.
I want one, but it's way beyond my means. But he had this machine. He had 3 different crystals, and he had some magnets. And man, he turned that thing on. I mean, I could tell within a few minutes. It was like, okay, we're done. We don't need any more. It was incredible. It's just incredible.
And he did this again via Zoom. So Lori and I were feeling this, and I'm not that sensitive, but I once again, I was feeling it right up here in my third eye and around my forehead. I was just feeling this sensation. So that was a very powerful device. So, what
Hey, Jack.
I saw that machine in operation in Dallas, Texas.
The one with the Merkaba that creates a Merkaba, and he's got silver and gold. Yeah,
Yep.
and he turns the tones on. Next thing you know, it's like you're taking off. You just.
Yeah.
I felt like I went to my original star and my spiritual truth, and I was like, wow, everything is fine. Everything is completely fine. I am content and safe.
And he uses the circuit. It also mitigates the EMF from your cell phone.
right.
Yes.
Right.
So Jack,
I
you
have
went
one.
to one of his seminars, or what? What did you do?
Well, I went to called the Children of Light Conference in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
Hosted by Joe Crane.
Okay.
Great.
Joe's one of the people we
think you
discussed.
mentioned him before, yeah.
Yeah. Small world. So
It is.
we've got lots to discuss next week, and so as always, we'll be interested in being able to give you some very preliminary ideas on all of these topics next week, and a little report from Lisa and Lori on using these gateway tones and other tones as well. Tom is working. I also wanted to say Tom Nornberg on putting these frequencies into some MP3 files. I hope that we'll have those next week. We're going to be replacing the old ones that we have up on the website when those new ones come in, because we didn't know at the time. We did octave harmonics based on base 10 mathematics instead of base 9. So we can't wait.
Tom was so excited last week, and I could tell his brain was working so hard, and I wanted to pick it. We've yet to talk to him since then. So
Well,
I'm excited.
And I am so happy he's working on this, because even as GW said, electronics was his bailiwick. It's not mine either. But he and GW were really going to town on what's the right form of the wave and so forth. And for those of us who aren't into that stuff, we wouldn't know one from the other. But Tom is working on those, and if we don't have next week, we'll try to have them for you the week after. But at least in the interim, you can go to soundsofwonder.com, and you'll see a tab for Solfeggio. You'll see then a tab for Solfeggio Matrix. You can take that out. What we'll also do next week, Lori, if you'd like to discuss this as well, or Lisa, there's a questionnaire that people can use to assist in determining your dominant scale or seed. And that can be done through a questionnaire. It can also be done intuitively. So if you take the test and you have some questions, call Lisa or Lori and, let them try to assist you intuitively in figuring out which seeds. And I also have to say, just to summarize, we would like to tell you that we have all the answers, but we asked GW about all this, and he's the first one to say he doesn't have all the answers either. All of this is really this matrix is very new information. And as a result, we're excited to be working, with his information, but we're trying to help each other out. So if any of you work with these frequencies, find something that is particularly helpful to you that we should know about, please let us know, because this is going to be a kind of a collaborative effort going forward to see how we can best, access this information for our common good.
And did you give him his website information?
Well, I did early on. It's GWHardin.com. That's one website. That's the one I had at the beginning of the show to go to for information. Let me see if I can pull that up again.
GWHardin.com and then soundsofwonder.com.
That's right. So that's, let's see here. Of course, I messed it up. Can you see that screen? I can go back. I can go back to the beginning and show you.
Was there something else you were going to announce with Lisa today?
No.
Oh, no so. Website, no nothing. Okay, sorry.
Well, I mean, we do have the Pyramid Science Foundation. Lisa did this, so let her go over that again.
With the YouTube channel, you mean?
Just tell people about the new foundation website that you're going to be working on.
Okay, so the Pyramid Science Foundation website is up and running, pyramidsciencefoundation.org. So if you want any information on that, we're still looking for people to help out, different committees doing experiments. If you're in the health professional field, we're looking for people that can help us do research and testing on different things with pyramid energy as well. We are going to be switching the Pyramid Quest show itself, because I just switched and created a Pyramid Science Foundation YouTube channel. So we're going to switch over to that here shortly, probably within the next week or so. And you'll be able to find all the old episodes of Pyramid Quest on that YouTube channel as well. And we'll also link, Stargate Pyramids to it, Lori's Psychic Omaha channel, and mine when I get it up and running to Fifth Element Frequency channel.
Perfect. So it'll all be in one place. You'll have access to all of our information. So on the research front, I was contacted by the folks who are helping us to get funding for the foundation. Apparently there's a pretty good interest right now on the part of philanthropies who want to fund research that might be relevant to the COVID virus. We're obviously very interested in trying to get that started. So one of the main things I'm going to be doing over the next week or so is trying to put together an outline that we can start to go out to investors with to seek funding. But we also hope to incorporate as much as we can of the sound healing stuff that we're starting to work on now. That may be a little bit down the road, but we're excited about the prospects of actually getting some funding in the short term. So anyway, this is GW Hardin's website, gwhardin.com. And as Lori mentioned earlier, soundsofwonder.com is the other website for Hardin's information. And it is the one where you'll find the Solfeggio Matrix. So I don't know if there's...
Did you want to check some of the chat, Charlie?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I mean, we have several people on today. Serdar, Starlight, Michael, Peter,
Are there any questions there?
Reel the one. I like this one because I think it's true. Thank you for helping me remember this self-actualization for those who can remember. Does anyone else feel like they know this but forget a lifetime or several lifetimes ago with the frequencies? And I had said, yes, I agree with that. Peter Bagshaw says, hi, everyone. Hope all is well.
Okay.
And happy spirits. There's a live chat today on London Real. Are you familiar with that? I think I've sent a few of those, especially with, David Icke was on one, and that's when they got in trouble with the BBC.
Oh, yes, about COVID. You bet.
Yeah.
That's a great video.
So, and then Michael has been talking a lot about frequencies and how they utilize it in music. And I think, Lisa, you mentioned that earlier as well, in cults, that they're using different frequencies for reasons.
Yeah, actually, the book I was telling you about with Leonard Horowitz, he talks about how the CIA utilized it in combination with LSD to hypnotize people and program serial killers like Charles Manson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interest. I mean, but you can utilize them just like Charlie said earlier, Gregorian chants. They can be harmonious or disharmonious.
Well,
So
how many
it
times
really depends on the frequency and the programming.
Some of these high, powerful stars that all of a sudden they're on TV and they kind of like go out for a little bit and then they come back? We've seen that time and time again.
Yes,
That's got to be some kind of frequency causing that, is what I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Very easily could be.
Well, I guess we're about out of time for today. So unless you guys have anything else, it's probably time to close up for today. As always, tell your friends about Pyramid Quest. As Lisa mentioned, we're going to be moving this to the Pyramid Science Foundation YouTube page here shortly. But until then, you can see it on the Stargate Pyramids YouTube page. And we thank you for watching, and tell your friends about this program. We enjoy doing this, and I think that we are providing some real cutting edge information for everyone's benefit. We enjoy doing this, and we hope that you'll tell your friends so that they can, if they're interested, partake of this information as well. So once again, we thank you all for watching, and until next week, I hope you have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.